Evening all, and we've managed to get a show on. How long it will last is debatable, given the weather at the moment. So it's not live from a sunny, warm Florida. It's live from a rather windy and blustery and very wet Florida currently. So we'll see how the show goes. This is Truth, Honour and Integrity, and seeing as I think they've been messing with the weather, they can stick it.
You can stick it, it will order up your ass.
Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. This is now October the 6th, and today was supposed to be quite a relevant day, and tomorrow. We'll have more about that shortly. But that last song, Riding the Storm Out, as you know, I live in Florida. I've just received better news that it's we're probably out of the cone of the hurricane winds, so I might be able to get through this show and hopefully get through the night without losing power. So we'll see how things go. So we'll just ride the storm out. But I will be all up praying for the people along the coast, from West Palm Beach all the way up to Daytona, as it's going to be quite a long 24 hours for them. You know, it's still packing 130 mile an hour winds. It wouldn't be that if it came ashore here. It was where, well, I keep saying where. It's now. I'm 50 miles inland, but we would probably experience 40 to 80 mile an hour sustained winds with gusts of 105. So we'll see how it goes anyway. Right, it's been an interesting week on many levels. It's been quite a scary week on many levels. But so far, things have been smoothed over, been fixed, been dealt with. But this was had the potential to be quite a catastrophic week. Thankfully, certain peoples, certain beings as well, have made sure that we are all still here, and so I will cover more of that later on in the hour. But let's get into the more, given what's going on, the more normal news, if you can call it normal. Of course, we've still got the election going on. Trump and Hillary. Mr. Trump, as forecast in August, would start making comments that would end up costing him the election. With the election, I might add that he had no intentions of winning to begin with. I'll keep saying this now. I think more and more people are now starting to see through it. But given we've had, we did a lot on Cosmic Voice. I know there's a lot of listeners from Cosmic Voice and a lot of listeners that moved over to TH&I. But we pushed the veterans issue quite heavily in the past group. Not so much in this group. It was just too much to get involved with. And my time is kind of limited these days, even more so now. So Mr. Trump decided to piss off, for want of a better word, all the veterans groups. He suggested that soldiers who suffer from mental health issues might not be as strong as those who don't. In other words, declaring them weak. I'd like to see Mr. Trump on the front line and come back and see how he handles it. You know, it's comments like that, and there's a comments to the Muslim couple who were also mother and father, if memory serves me rightly, of a US veteran, and is complete disdain of people who, rightly or wrongly, are putting their lives on the line, not for we the people, not for America, only for corporations and service to self people. and for him to come out and make a comment like that, do we really, even if the election was real and fair, do we really need somebody like that looking after this country? Not in my opinion, but you all know my opinion going back 12 months ago. So this was in an event organised by the Retired American Warriors Political Action Committee last Monday. It's a wonder he got out alive, to be quite honest. When he was asked about his commitment to faith-based programs aimed at preventing suicides and helping soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury and other issues, he went on to say, when you talk about the mental health problems, people come back from war and combat and they see things that maybe a lot of folks in this room haven't seen many times over, and you're strong and you can handle it, but a lot of people can't. Like I said, maybe we should throw him in Iraq, or better still, throw him in Syria and see how he comes back. He probably shit his pants the minute he got on the plane to go there. Never mind on the battlefield. So, Mr. Trump needs to shut up and just spill the beans and tell the people what he's up to, because we've had enough of the bullshittery. We're all sick of it, and we don't need people like him rubbing their noses in people who are suffering from PTSD with comments like that. You know, just go away. You're not wanted, and neither's the other candidate, who's not even alive. For Christ's sake, you know, it gets more ridiculous by the day. So Mr. Trump, as it's been deemed, has not paid taxes for 18 years despite amassing a $10 billion fortune. Well, you know, he's not the only one. There's corporations that are far worse. But why is it these people that think they can run the country don't pay any taxes for the people who do? What do they understand about paychecks or living paycheck to paycheck? None whatsoever. So within the last week, we found out that Mr. Trump not only doesn't pay any taxes to this country, but he also doesn't pay the workers that built all his conglomerate empire, Trump Inc. So that's Mr. Trump. Now we'll come to the body double, Hillary Clinton. You know, you've all seen it. You don't need me to tell you that's not the same person stumbling or pretending to stumble in and out of so-called conferences. The green screens, you know, suddenly missing on the phones that are recording. She's not there. You know, and people saying to me, well, she's not there, she's on the TV. Well, look closer, you know. You don't need me to tell you that a person with pneumonia doesn't lose 30 pounds overnight and looks 15 years younger. That just don't happen. So it's been revealed that Hillary wanted to drone Julian Assange when she was Secretary of State, and it's all been outed. And WikiLeaks, in the month before the whistleblowing site released a massive dump of 250,000 diplomatic cables from 1966 up to 2010, dubbed Cablegate. Her response was, can't we just drone this guy? Now, Mr. Assange is supposed to release a whole heap of more information this week. I can tell you now, he was threatened. Not just him either. So that's why for the silence of Julian Assange currently. Maybe, like I've been calling for on this show many times, maybe certain people with the clout and the wherewithal can provide a platform of protection for for him to release the stuff. Enough's enough. So we've got this election, but we've all seen how we've all been trampled on in almost every aspect of our life, and how much they control things. If people are still listening to this show, and others in the community, you need to consider one thing, given the depths of control that these people have over us currently, although it is weakening. If voting made any difference, do you think they would allow us to do it? But they wouldn't. So the best thing we can do, as in Americans, or the ones that can vote, is don't play the game. Why be forced to pick from incarnate evil to just evil? It's still evil. It's not a choice. They're not spiritual based. They're not people based. These are murderous criminals and fraudsters. Trump, he's been bankrupt 4 times. Who do you think bailed him out 4 times? If we go bankrupt, all the listeners, do we get allowed to be put back in high-level business? Absolutely not. Credit report wouldn't allow you any credit. So where do you think Mr. Trump got all his money back from? The factions. And why would we want a guy who's been bankrupt 4 times taking over a bankrupt country? Doesn't augur very well, does it? We need alternatives. Period. Hitler, he will just take us to war. He's already set it up. Or the people operating the double have already set it up, I might add. So, anyway, that's enough on selection. It bores the shit out of me. It makes me mad. Because I'm kind of preaching to the choir for most of our group. It's just a complete and utter waste of our time, and quite honestly, an insult to this country. We've just had to put up with successive presidents, going back to Eisenhower, or going back to Harding, 1923, who signed the agreement for America to start World War II in 1939. 16 years before it started. Then you had Eisenhower selling humans out to hideous looking greys. And then you got his granddaughter running around the internet community talking a load of crap and living off the back of it. Mr. Eisenhower sold humanity out for technology. Yeah, you can go and abduct a few. They don't do a few. And those people are still paying a price for that. And then, of course, we went up to Kennedy. Now, a lot of people revere Kennedy, but you must also remember Kennedy is one of the bloodline families. Whether he was doing different, history will show that it looks that way. But then, is it new boss same as the old boss? A bit like Putin, playing the good guy in what is essentially a bad role. He's not the good guy for us, he's just playing the good guy for them. Then on we go to, Bush Senior and his involvement, Nixon, fraud. Bush Senior then rolls on Carter, Does anyone remember him doing anything? Absolutely anything. Then we had to put up with an actor doing it. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You've got an actor who's a Nazi in California, Mr. Schwarzenegger. No Nazi. Why are we allowing these people in the country? And then we had idiot Bush mixed in with Bush puppet Clinton after they went bankrupt, the two of them. So who did they go to be bailed out? The Bush group. That's why they're linked. You know, so then we think, well, it can't get any worse. We'll have a Muslim. Sounds like Osama. Yeah. Middle name Hussein. Weren't we fighting with that guy in Iraq? You know, promising change. The only thing he changed was his name, Mr. Citero. Now, apparently, recently he's been pulling the stops out, blocking certain things that are beneficial. But I think I would like to see it a bit more public. Whether he's got the protection also to do that is another thing coming. But now we're faced with Trump, with his vice president named Pence, which is ironic. Pence is a currency in Britain, and that's what Trump's about, money. Not for us, them. And Hillary, with their vice president, Kane. He's not very able, is he? So, enough about politics. So the growing effort of control is increasing. They're now talking about outlawing altogether off-grid living in the US, as well as moves by local governments around the country to criminalise private rainwater collection. Well, we've mentioned this on the show previous. Now the federal government is making a major move against the tiny house movement. You know, you just can't make this stuff up. And they're seeking to give the US Department of Housing and Urban Development Authority to require tiny houses to conform to the standards of recreational vehicles, of which one of the rules is that the vehicles may not be used or marketed for a permanent living. Who gave them the authority to decide what we can live in or where we can live? Anyway, the HUD is seeking to regulate tiny house living out of existence, or to turn it into a regulated industry by requiring that tiny homes be manufactured in factories conforming to codified standards. There's those licenses again that you've got to have. In other words, come into our red tape system and we'll just keep blocking you. You know, we covered this the other week with the tree house in Florida, wasn't it? Boggles the mind. So, where are we next? The Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, a US federal law, has come into effect, demanding that foreign banks provide the US Tax Revenue Service with information on the assets and identities of their clients. And it appears now that many of the rich people have started considering alternative ways of storing their wealth. Yes, it's gone in certain underground bunkers. One day those bunkers will be empty like the Vatican. Oops. So they're purchasing privately owned vaults, and no matter what kind of sophisticated security measures they employ, They do not have to provide information regarding their clients to regulatory bodies, unlike banking institutions. So they're going away from the offshore, which is now suddenly being monitored and being looked at, and they're moving it elsewhere to unregulated bodies, and we allow them. So in the last several years, a considerable number of former Swiss military bunkers have been sold to private owners, with about 10 of them currently being used to store gold and computer data. And it should be noted that companies operating such vaults also don't have to report any sort of suspicious activity to Switzerland's money laundering reporting office. Really. Here's something that's going to really piss us Americans off. More money wasted. So there's been a new joint investigation held by the Sunday Times in the UK and the Bureau of Investigative I'll put my teeth back in, investigative journalism, the Pentagon, paid a PR firm based in the UK over $500 million to make fake terrorist videos in Iraq as part of an enormous propaganda campaign. The PR firm Bell Pottinger fabricated short TV segments designed to imitate Arabic news networks and fake insurgent videos which could be used to track the people who watched them, according to a former employee. And so so now you know where all the beheading videos came from, all designed to turn the people against the Muslims. And you will know I've stood firm on this for going back 2 years. It's the same people doing the same things. The same people who created ISIS, ISIL, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, all boogeymen. All operate by the same rogue agency people who then do propaganda videos with our money, $500 million, to dupe the American public. And not only dupe us, but watch who watches it. It has to stop. So, where are we next? This goes on further, because it mentions high-ranking US military officials who worked with the firm's employees at Baghdad Camp Victory to correct. It's almost like mission accomplished. Remember that? 13 years ago. Why are we still there then? To create anti-terrorism propaganda to imitate the real thing, the Bureau claims. Besides the Pentagon, Bell Pottinger's list of clientele reads like a who's who of unsavoury characters. The Chilean dictator Mr. Pinochet, Margaret Thatcher, the government of Saudi Arabia, Bush puppets, and the former Bell Pottinger's former chairman, Lord Tim Bell, reportedly confirmed to the Times had collaborated on a covert military operation covered by various secrecy agencies and reported to the CIA, Pentagon and the National Security Council. According to the report, the firm was brought to Iraq and began working shortly after the United States first invaded, under the condition it negatively portrayed Al-Qaeda, and then to track who watched the propaganda. Both the White House and General David Petraeus, or should I call him General Betrayers, then commander of coalition forces in Iraq, signed off on the program. Thus the president was almost certainly well aware of its existence, but chose to ignore it. So by tracking US Army contracts, records of federal procurement transactions, reports for the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General and corporate records, the Bureau was able to discover the extent of the program. One military contractor in particular, who spoke with the outlet to explain the 3 types of labels given to media operations, or ops, used in Iraq during that time, said, white is attributed, it says who produced it and on the label. Grey is unattributed and black is falsely attributed. These type of black ops used for tracking who is watching a certain thing were a pretty standard part of the industry toolkit. Records also revealed the operation involving the PR firm cost well over $100 million each year, and at its height employed more than 300 British and Iraqi staff. So, it beggars belief. We'll now go to France. We knew it wouldn't take long, because we warned of this on this show after the alleged attacks in France, and what would likely be the outcome of it. Well, this week the giants of the French tourism industry, including Disney and the Galeries Lafayette, that's a department store, have written to an open letter to the French government calling for the establishment of, wait for it, a special police force. The note on serious crisis that affects French tourism was sent by Alliance 46.2, which includes 21 leading companies in the French tourism sector, as well as Galleries and Disney, Aéroports de Paris and SNCF Railway were amongst the signatories. In other words, all the big corporate groups. And according to this letter, the French tourism industry is concerned about the loss of competitiveness, which is affected by last November's terrorist attacks in Paris, plus the numerous demonstrations against the labour reform that took place in the French capital this spring. So it's not a special police force, it's military. Martial law, anyone? Not the first country that have employed it in Europe. This is the way it's going. If we don't agree to all the refugees, we're going to cause an issue, send people to fight the refugees, saying the refugees are doing this, that and the other, cause chaos, bring in the military, impose curfew, impose martial law, because the people ask for it. This is where it's stupid. We ask for our own downfall because we fail to see the problem, reaction, solution. It gets rolled out time and time and time again. It's time we started, all of us, not just the people who listen to this show, all of us started seeing the problem, reaction, solution. So there's issues going on in Pakistan, India now, again, over the disputed Kashmir region. This is basically, to put it bluntly, is another drug war. There's a lot of poppies, etc. in that region, and they're fighting over who controls it. Pakistan is operated, as we know, by a certain agency on these soils. So you know who that is. It's the same thing again, trying to control everything. Where are we? Pentagon. The Pentagon has its own bureaucratic self-interest in the so-called new Cold War with Russia. Of course, there's been a number of reports of alleged issues between the two countries, possible threats of firing nuclear weapons at each other, which will not take place, but it's more fear programming and more rhetoric. So the Pentagon has now decided to go against President Obama's strategy, as it's getting a lot of congressional money based on that confrontation. The journalist Gareth Porter told RT that the Pentagon has now gone completely the opposite to President Obama on the negotiations with Russia. Furthermore, the Russian Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov said the US military are apparently in no hurry to follow President Obama's orders regarding cooperation with Moscow on Syria. We can only guess why they decided to convene an emergency UN Security Council meeting on an off day. That's called a factions meeting, that's why. Although it's not hard to guess, it's obvious that the West, headed by the US, which leads the coalition against ISIS, it leads the coalition ISIS, not against it. And as they say, in Syria is failing to meet its obligations. He also said the US Commander-in-Chief, President Obama, as I was assured, always supported cooperation with Russia. That was also confirmed during his meeting with Vladimir Putin in China. So there appears to be a split between the government, or the Corporation Inc., and the Pentagon over how to handle Russia. Methinks neither can handle that too well currently, given the rhetoric that they're spewing out. Britain, despite coming out of Europe, known as Brexit, the IMF this week has backtracked, saying that the gloomy forecast for the UK has gone the other way, and the UK will boast the fastest growing major economy in 2016. I presume that's in Europe, but it might be the world. I'm not too sure on that, but it doesn't say. Anyway, in the new report, the IMF predicts the US gross domestic product will grow by 1.8% this year, ahead of US, Germany, Japan, and other members of the G7. There you go. It's just the faction countries then. Prior to the June referendum, the IMF claimed a Brexit would plunge the UK into a recession. It is now conceded that those warnings proved to be overly pessimistic. Yeah, most of their warnings proved to be overly pessimistic, as most of them fail. However, it went on and to be overly pessimistic again. In 2017, it forecast a sharp downturn for the UK. Yeah, right. Claiming the economy would suffer from the shock of the EU referendum results. Well, it's taken its time to for the shockwave to hit, because generally it's the following day. Of course, there's been a lot of shockwaves in the markets this week. Gold's plummeted, silver's plummeted, platinum's plummeted, pound's plummeted, Canadian dollar's plummeted. Could there be there's something going on that we don't know, but maybe we will. So the expansion in Britain next year would be just 1.1%, which is probably a lot more than it's increasing here at the moment, but that's the way it goes. Our good Nazi bank, the Deutsche Bank, was allegedly told this week, maybe I should give the Justice Department a call. Maybe they can cancel my foreclosure notice based on this report. Yes, so the Deutsche Bank, aka Nazi Bank, has told the US Justice Department that they will not pay the fine of $14 billion for rigging mortgage markets. And if the US tries to press ahead with such a fine, then they can expect the entire US banking system to collapse. Deutsche Bank is the largest centre of derivatives contracts on planet Earth, just so we all know, touching almost every mortgage loan on Earth. If DB was to be crushed out of business by a US fine, all the banks in the US which rely on the Deutsche Bank would find themselves out in the financial cold. Commerce in the largest industry in the country and in the world would halt overnight due to a lack of funding mechanisms. In other words, a lack of fraud. That's what it really means, funding mechanisms. It's a bit like all these other fancy terms, hedge bets and all this. Fraud. Negotiations about a fine are expected to be ongoing this week, but the starting point is clear. Deutsche Bank will tell the US Department of Justice how this matter will be resolved, and if the DOJ doesn't comply, the entire United States banking system will be brought to a halt. Put simply, the DOJ will do as it's told, or the US government will find itself and its entire country financially destroyed. Really? So this is now become a banking war. Well, it's time for the US Department of Justice to operate on behalf of US justice and its people once and for all, and tell the Deutsche Bank to go and stick it with the threats, and we want the 14 billion ACA now. Oh, and by the way, cancel Tommy Williams' foreclosure notice. So we'll see how that goes. I may get someone to contact them and add that into the agreement. So that'll be a good laugh. Right, some intel. This you're not going to like, but it has a better ending. I've put out warnings this week. I need to, for what the one or two who questioned why I didn't give more details. You have to understand, if I put something out, something that they're doing, that puts me under serious threat because I've outed it. If I give details, they then change the details because I've outed it in a certain region. If I don't give details, they may keep the same ones, which we are aware of. But I can only put out what is safe to put out. I risked my neck putting that information out, that there was planned events. It's still ongoing, I might add. Now, the factions decided to declare war on the US, and there's 18 planned false flag events for the US this week. Now, to date, a lot of them have been negated. Some of the areas, no, I'm not going to mention the areas. It will only spook certain people. Major cities are an issue. Like I said, most of these events are not to put you in fear, it's to give you a heads up and a warning. You've known in the past that a lot of these events have been thwarted by the outing of them. And we have a lot of good people who are able to put the blocks on these type of events to cause chaos. Of course, they caused chaos in Paris, and now they're talking about asking to put special police forces, which is another name for military. So you cause chaos in America, blame it on the Muslims, blame it on the Russians, a whole heap of people you can blame it on now, and the people will fall for it, and you'll have to come on the streets and protect us. There's that problem, reaction, solution again. So it was kind of hairy this week. And of course this week's not over yet. But that was the 18 events that they were planning simultaneously. Now, so far, so good. Now, the Asian faction is up to their fun and games again. And they're trying to launder fictitious SKRs through the Shanghai Exchange to support, wait for it, the TRN, Treasury Reserve Note. Except it's not our Treasury. And it's not our note either. So the TRN people who are pushing this, thinking they're going to get bounties and they're going to get untold wealth from Zims and Dongs and and all kinds of other strange sounding currency names. It sounds like a Chinese directory, Dings and Dongs. So according to these people, Putin runs the Treasury Reserve Note. Really? From Russia? And therefore now owns the USA. And they're thinking of starting dinar exchanges for TRN. Rumours as it started. I hope it doesn't come here, because we don't want it. Now, they've alleged that they've signed off on the TRN agreement, and it's supposedly been lodged with the UN, but there's no record of it currently. Those documents are being looked for, and to date they're not there. And the new republic that the people keep talking about is registered in France. From Britain to France via Asia. This is not what we want. So apparently some unknown person in the US signed for it, and it's not a government official, i.e. it's not the president. All done behind closed doors between the Nazi faction and the Asian faction. They think they can slice and dice America up. You have this bit and we'll have that bit. No, you're not getting any bit. Piss off, we don't want you in our country. And it's time the military, who the people pay, go and do the job. We don't need this scum on our lands. So that's kind of where we're at with the financial. It's kind of where we're at with the factions. Now, I mentioned in August, from September onwards, you may start seeing things falling from the sky. I know some of you said there was being reports this week off the East Coast. That may or may not increase. Reason being, there's a war above our heads. Yet again, certain elements in the US, but it wasn't just them, it was all the faction groups, asked for a winged reptilian group to attack planet Earth as of this week. As of midnight on Wednesday, they were supposed to be launching Project Bluebeam, or something similar. but it really would have been the Hydra reptilians, not the Draco, who are going to attack the planet. Those clowns are all in underground bunkers, so it's only the people that would suffer. Now, attacks have been made on these winged reptilians, and there's been a lot of heavy casualties. Now, what you may find is a lot of the satellites will start going down. But yes, we have the Star Wars program, and it's run from satellites. It's one of the things discussed in the talk group we had at Cosmic Voice about removing certain satellites or getting certain friendlies to remove certain satellites, because not all of them are pointed away from Earth. Numbers of them are pointed at us. So as of now, their threat to unleash war on the planet, which was supposed to start at midnight Wednesday in the east and go right round the planet to the west, was prevented. It doesn't mean to say it's stopped altogether. We expect further issues to prevail, but this is the kind of things that are going on currently that it's not pleasant for me to hear. You know, we all want to hear good news, but we are in the final times. We are in the end times. That doesn't mean to say it's going to be the end for all of us. But if war is rolled out on that scale, then it would be catastrophic. I'm of the personal belief it will never get to that. It will be prevented one way or the other. Rest assured, the UPU are playing a more than active role in it. Whilst there is representatives of different species on that, they are in agreement for the humans to have more control of themselves or of ourselves. One of the plans that was put forward, or suggestions, not plans, suggestions, is maybe they remove all the rogue elements, because a lot of it now is the human aspect, the greedy psychopaths. Because the Draco are gone, they think, oh, we can control it now. We've got all their tech and we've got all our own tech. Let's just control it for ourselves, and this is what the factions is all about. But every now and again, when it suits them, the factions stop infighting and join up and sign agreements, like the Nazi and Asian group over the finances for the TRN. They haven't got enough gold to pull off an RV, otherwise they would have done it. We haven't got enough gold to pull off a TRN, otherwise they would have done it. But rest assured, there's numbers of people, an increasing number of people, good people around the world, who are preventing this night and day. And whoever you get some spare time, maybe an unknown thanks to those people would be in order. Very few of them are on the internet, so you don't know who they are. There's lots of people operating underground for the benefit of humanity. if they didn't, all of us would be doomed now. Literally. And the fact that we started off with so few, and it's increased in number exponentially, particularly this year. 63 million stepped down from following orders. 63 million stopped following orders. A lot of people not playing the game for them anymore. So, whilst that's all a bit scary, I've had to keep it under my hat for the last week. I was thinking about, because of what was then quite a dire situation on Wednesday, with the TRN, the false flags threats, and the threat of some sort of fake alien attack, which could have also been real. Things cleared sufficiently to not require doing the show last night. Things have cleared sufficiently to out it a bit more than I wanted to this evening. So things whilst are on the face of it gloomy in some aspects, are hope, cause for hope in many others, because they keep trying these things and we keep blocking. You just hope that eventually it'll get down to such a few, or certain ones with the wherewithals to be able to carry it out, actually go and do what was requested, which is a full removal of all rogue entities, including the puppets, with a possibility of non-rogue people or non-cabal people then possibly taking over for 5 years. This was a suggestion, and see how far we can go without their control. If we can't improve things after 5 years, then that's our own fault. Because then we need control. I happen to believe if that suggestion was ever enacted upon, I happen to believe that we would prosper rather well within 5 years, where we make the decisions of how things should be, like feeding everyone, making sure everyone's got a home, making sure everyone has energy, clean water, clean food, no more chemtrails. I think all of those are manageable within 5 years, and not the sheer stupidity of watching the happy clappers at conferences voting for two people who have zero interest in you or I. Right, we're going to go into a music break now, and perhaps this is fitting. Hi all, and welcome back after the music break. Don't stop believing. Well, I haven't, despite rather difficult times, girlfriend leaving, foreclosure notices, and they're throwing hurricanes my way, but we keep fighting on. They won't get me down. So the show will go on. They've even cut me Skype off and blocked me from my music tonight. So it's all fun and games. But we will overcome, and that's exactly what we're all about. The show must go on. Right, so that was some interesting intel, but I would hope that certain individuals that were born here really start showing their pride for the country. Now, they have signed oaths. Unfortunately, a lot of those oaths have nothing to do with America, more to do with the corporation. But people should have honour. Stand up for the truth. And like the name of the show, truth, honour and integrity. If we all started showing that in this country and around the world, we could end this nonsense very, very quickly. It may be that we have to have a small amount of help from outside. I would have liked us not to have needed that, because it suggests we still haven't developed enough to look after ourselves. But then the argument is, have we been given the tools to look after ourselves? Technically, all the tools are there, but unfortunately they're in control of certain psychopaths who are bought and paid for by the Draco, and others, I might add. Mention the Greys, the tall Greys, that President Eisenhower signed agreement. That should have gone to the people for a vote. If we were in a true democracy, which is a load of crap anyway, all them isms, all we have to do is abide by natural law. And Mr. Eisenhower signed that agreement was not abiding by common or natural law, because they were going to injure or harm the abductees, regardless of whether there was physical injuries. It's the mental injuries for the ones that recall, that live with them for the rest of their life, and you never really get over it. How can you, when maybe as much as 80-90% of the people are telling you that aliens don't exist to your face? They know privately, they're just too frightened to admit it. So it's left to isolated people they can trust to go to and discuss their stories. Thankfully, we've got a fairly large alternative media to do that now, a platform. But also, sadly, certain individuals have used that platform to commandeer information and pass on to authorities. We've done a lot this year, not just me, but a number of others of exposing that type of behaviour. And this is where we really need certain groups and individuals to step up and give humanity an opportunity to actually govern themselves. I ran a story a few weeks ago in Louisiana. They didn't wait for FEMA. They'd have still been waiting now. Bit like the people of Katrina. Still not back in their homes, are they? 10 years ago? 9, 10, 11 years ago? Very few of them are back in their homes. Only the richer ones. None of the black people got back in, but they weren't meant to. So the people of Louisiana decided, we're not waiting for no government, we're not waiting for no bogus, fraudulent Red Cross, and we're not waiting for FEMA either, and just got on with rescuing people and clearing up. So they didn't need controlling or governing, did they? if we all applied that, hopefully the damage is not too severe, but I fear on the coast of Florida over the next 24 hours, the people of Florida will act like the people of Louisiana and go and help people who require it. They'll be waiting for the the reptilian-looking Mr. Scott we've got as governor here. He's tucked away in Tallahassee, out the way. He's not on the front line. So I hope the people of Florida take up the baton that Louisiana laid down. Let's fix it ourselves. Don't wait for them and their red tape. Well, hopefully it all starts going away. There'll be another update in an hour or so as to whether it's made landfall at all. Hopefully it won't. It's going to be bad enough as it is without making landfall. So we'll see on that. Right. If any more comes up, I'll try to give warnings as best I can. But please, you have to understand, for those that question, it's not an easy situation to put certain information out, particularly when it ruins everything that they're doing. I put out what I can, and most of it, when you're putting them type of information out, it's a risk to myself. I haven't got the support here now that I did have, being on my own. So it's not an easy situation, and I hope people understand that when I put the information out. Right, before I go into some questions, apologies to the people who listen on YouTube. I've been too busy this week dealing with multiple things, as you can see, and I haven't managed to put up the YouTube for last week. So I'll see if I can get that done tomorrow, or maybe one of the members can help me out and post the YouTube each week. It will be a help to me, because I'm just doing too much at the moment. But we'll see how that goes. I'll see if I can get last week's YouTube and this week's up tomorrow night, unless the power goes out, and then we'll have to wait until next week then. Right, let's go into some questions. These are held over from last week, I think, and then I'm going to have to go on the Facebook page because I haven't got access to the Skype tonight, and see if I can pull some questions from there. So this is a question via the email. For those of you who are not familiar, if you don't want to be part of the Facebook group, I know there's many who don't, and you want to put questions into the show, the email is truth.honor.and.integrity@gmail.com. And this came via email. When the restored constitution takes place, will the Patriot Act be abolished? Yes, absolutely. It's not unconstitutional. And second question, is the Patriot Act a replica of the Nazi Enable Act? Absolutely. It's the same people, just the descendants. Homeland Security was also a Nazi group. Of course, the Nazis did the Reichstag fire to enact certain things, false flag. We all know what enabled it here. It's the same thing over and over again. I mentioned Schwarzenegger, former Nazi. Bush's real name, Schiff, Nazis. Go and look at the list of people in the House or the Senate, and look how many German sounding names there is. For a country who has very little German people, there's an awful lot of German named people in our so-called government. And the next one, would you think that the Nazi faction would do anything in their power to stop us restoring the Constitution? They are. I happen to think they won't prevail eventually. Once certain, I know people get tired of hearing this and I get tired of saying it, once certain things are put into place, their ability to operate anything or control anything will cease to exist. That's why it needs certain individuals to stop hedging their bets and waiting. They need to act, and they need to act now before it gets really out of hand. Is it true that Snowden and Assange have been and still are CIA assets? Not to my knowledge, they're not. They may help. So you got it when you mentioning the CIA and the FBI for that matter. It's kind of confusing as to what they actually are. We spoke on this show, which kind of peed off the agency people, about mirror groups. There's a CIA 1 and a CIA 2. There's good people in one, there's also bad people in one, but there's the mirror group are military industrial complex, aligned with factions, aligned with rogue negative ET groups. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question as such, and people should take that into account. You can't just dismiss the whole of the FBI because there's good people in there, and you can't just dismiss the whole of the CIA because there's good people in there also. The infiltration of the good people has now started having effects in those groups and many other groups. So it's not just one side that infiltrates. Are dogs able to transcend and become human, and do souls evolve? It's possible. As I understand it, when you return to source, you have a choice. There's no real. The second part of the same question is to souls. What is the progression? Do you go from plants up to trees and onwards and upwards? No, not necessarily. You can go forward, you can go back. There is no forward. Technically, there is no back either. It's just how the soul chooses to learn. This particular lifetime, you might be service to others. That's why you're part of the group. Wanting to fix things. In the previous lifetime, you might have been cabal, part of the early plans. So the soul then gets a balance. You know what's right and what's wrong, and you're then able to see it from both sides. If we were all good, would any of us know about dark or bad? So that's why there's the free will. Free will has kind of gone out of control on this planet anyway, because you've got free will of a whole heap of people who basically are walking zombies. They don't see nothing, they don't feel nothing, they don't hear nothing, and just robotic carry on. Well, why should the likes of us suffer their stupidity? This is the argument. Why should we? But it's all, at the end of the day, it's all part of the learning curve of the individual soul. But we've all played good and bad characters. But you've heard me say in the past, some people will say they remember being Jesus, or they remember being Mary or somebody else in a past life, because that's deemed to be in a good role. But what point? What's the use if you were Mother Teresa in the past life? If this life you're a homicidal maniac, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a title at the end of the day. So it's all about soul progression, and some people choose to work their way up the dimensions. It's not necessarily progression. And some choose to drop down to have a different experience. Some choose to be the victim in this setting. In fact, most of us are victims in this setting. But if we all get out of it intact, or largely intact, then we've had in a roundabout way, quite an extraordinary experience and quite an extraordinary learning curve. You can't progress if you don't have personal responsibility. It's sadly lacking in many of the populace here and in Europe, where we hand our personal responsibility over to other people. What you've got to ask is that soul progression? You handing your power over to somebody else? No, it's not. And this is why we work so hard to stop that. We have to stop giving away our power to other people. Oh, so-and-so will fix it, and they'll fix it, the governments will fix it. No. It's up to each and every one of us to fix it. But each and every one of us are feeling the effects of it. Now it's just that this game is stacked, or was stacked heavily against us with the zombie people. And this is why allowances, when certain off-world councils have to undertake. We haven't been given a chance. I am of the intuition, heavy intuition I might add, that every time we've reached a technological level, certain groups have come in and destroyed it and blamed it on the people. Why did they not want us going out? Are we a threat to them? Why do people want to control? Well, the only reason people want to control anything is because they're weak themselves. So they're frightened of the people they're controlling taking over them. They're weak. We just perceive them as being strong, but individually they're all very, very weak. And it's up to us to really, on a soul level, question what we have to do. So to sum up your question, what kind of went off track a bit there. Yes, dogs are able to transcend, the soul can, but that soul might have been human previously, might have been something else previously also. We've all been male, female, light, dark. What's important this time is we balance the male, female, and we balance the light and dark. We don't need a continuation of what is a current matriarchal system, and I'll repeat that again, current matriarchal system. Yes, we're being told it's patriarchal. It's not. The evidence is all there. If we look, for those who question that, go and look at Michael Sarian's The Female Illuminati. You remember Shane talking about the parents. 9 of the last 10 that were left were female. The only male was the Saudi prince. The 3 that are left now are female. The coven members, a certain royal in Britain, coven member. You know, everything's a lie, everything's backwards. So this idea that we improve from a patriarchal to matriarchal, like they're telling us, is wrong, because we're already in it. What we need is balance. Alright, next question. Is it true that David Rockefeller has had 7 separate heart transplants? I believe so. I wish one of them had failed. Is it likely that people are eliminated so that he acquires the correct heart for his blood type? Well, it's probably the case. These people have the funds to pay, and so I've no doubt there's been some kind of shenanigans going on. Can you give us any names and updates regarding the Kool-Aid drink and the body count? No, I can't. I don't know who took it, I just know they took it. I wasn't given numbers or names, except the whole batch was compromised. What does the switch from binary to trinary look like? Will it be different, and what will be the same? Well, I wish I had Drake for this now. Drake could probably take about half an hour answering this question, as he understood that more. But I'll use my basic terms. The AI and the computer that we all listen to, the phones, are all binary code. If you put a third number in it, it collapses. Binary to trinary. So that's how the matrix is collapsed. Now, it comes down again on a separate thing. Is I was talking about this recently, about duality, except the choices we're kind of given are not really choices at all. It's a bit like Trump and Clinton. That's not a choice. It's not our choice anyway. Well, might be for some, certainly not for me. And then you got a look at the Matrix movie, and they said, do you take the blue or red pill? My answer was neither. Always look for a third option, because the two that they proffer for you are win-win. It's like what's going on with the factions. Do we stop the Asian faction, or do we stop the Nazi faction? Well, if the Nazi faction stopped the Asian faction, does that help us? No. Because Rothschilds controls both. Win-win. So what we do is create our own faction and knock the two of them out. They've reduced things to two in many aspects of our life. If you look at the choices, it's not really a choice. They don't give us choices. They give us their solutions, and you have like the lesser of evils. So sorry I couldn't answer that question more specifically, but that's the best I can come up with. There's some fields that I don't excel at, and I'll just say what I can, and that's enough. Assuming certain politicians are clones, must these clones be grown from infancy to adult, or is there some type of growth acceleration in use? And how does the cabal know who to clone? I'm kind of limited on the knowledge of clones, but yes, they're grown from infancy, but there is some sort of acceleration. From what I've been told, they can roll them out rather quickly than they used to. and some of them have multiples. But the problem being is if the main one is failed or failing, then so do the clones. That's why they use body doubles. And how does the Cabal know who to clone? Well,
Hey Tommy, can you hear me?
hang on a minute. Apologies for that. Somebody doesn't remember when the show is. Right, where are we with that now? The clones. How does the Cabal know who to clone? Well, they used to have access to what's known as the looking glass technology, where they can project into the future and see how things come out. Then they insert certain types of people to suit certain agendas or certain programs. So Mr. Obama was told as far back as, what was it, 15, 16 years ago, that he was going to be the next president in 2008, long before. So that then gives them time to implement that sort of program. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know what language the council speaks or how the translation works. I'll have to get catch up with those more on that. But there's that much going on. I haven't had much chance to catch up on some of the stuff for the show and from the show. So that's kind of, I don't know those answers, but I don't think they could tell you what the language was, even and certainly not from here anyway. If we're waiting at 93% natural universe for people to catch up, is there a critical mass type situation expected when many will suddenly get it, perhaps following a televised event or similar, or is it likely that some people just left behind, or is there no provision for that? Well, as I understand it, we are at 93. That may be increased. It's not a holding pattern as such, although it is in some aspects. If it all went in one go, it might be too much. But there will be some sort of critical mass type situation where suddenly things change. They just change, and that's it. You wake up next day and suddenly things look or feel different. Many of us are experiencing some of that already. Certainly the energy waves coming in have had a large impact. As for the televised event, I'm not so sure there can be a televised event, because there's no defining moment as to when it clicks over. We haven't got the switch as such, so that's going to be rather difficult. Is it likely that some people just be left behind, or is there no provision for that? No, the people who have left themselves behind will be in for a rather rude awakening. They've been given every help at this point now. All of us have been telling people that this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and to look out for this and look out for that, and they just choose to ignore, or laugh, or roll the eyes. Most people now are familiar with the fact that there's a lot of things on this planet that literally just don't make sense. So instead of looking into it themselves, they choose to let other people do it and then laugh at them when it doesn't fit into their lifestyle or life pattern. So Truth hurts, as they say. Could you update the US financial situation? Well, I kind of did in the first hour. The cabal are in dire straits because they're trying to wheel out all kinds of programs that they haven't got the funding for. They haven't got the gold to implement the US TRN. So they then take loaned gold via the Asian faction, who then take over the US. Well, good people have decided we're not going to tolerate that situation and have blocked it. And they're not best pleased at the moment. The banks are becoming more and more desperate as the funds dry up. They had to continue their Ponzi scheme. You need new mugs, i.e. us, to sign up for further debt. Well, most people are not signing up for further debt. They're not buying more houses. They're not buying new cars. Car industry's in deep doo-doo at the moment because people can't afford to buy them, and they don't want to sign up for overinflated interest. You know, they give us 0.5% for our money and then lend our money out to us at 13 to 20%, and we tolerate that. It's not their money, remember. You know, a lot of people forget. Banks don't have money. Banks have our money, not theirs. So it's kind of throwing papers across the desk at each other at the moment. It's frustrating for our people trying to get them to have a modicum of sense and see what they're doing will just ruin anything anyway, including themselves. So it's not just that it will to help them. What they're trying to push forward will also crush themselves as well. So why not do it a better way? And so negotiations are still ongoing. Everything they proffer forward is basically a pile of crap, and so it gets blocked. So until they get to a situation where it's beneficial to them and it's beneficial, more importantly, to us, then things will continue to get worse on a financial from a financial point of view. It may mean the Deutsche Bank has to go down. That will then lead to a knock-on effect. So it may need a shock to their system for them to finally, some of them anyway, see sense and come to the table. Are timelines being protected by the UPU? Not really. Timelines are decided by the consciousness of the people. Yes, they can mess with time travel and change and alter things where we may not be aware. But if the consciousness of the people doesn't accept that, it stays where it was. Timelines are, you can go one way or the other. And we are on a better timeline because the consciousness of the planet and its people have raised considerably over the last few years. As long as we keep progressing in that, and hopefully we get a whole heap more, then things should go our way. Right, I've run out of questions on the computer. I need to go find some questions on the Facebook page, so you have to bear with me. They've normally I get the questions off the Skype, but they decided to block by Skype today, so I have to read from the Facebook page. Right, where are we? I'm probably going to finish up early tonight, as I need to check on certain things, bits of the storms and that. Where are we? Up we go. What will be the effect now of the internet takeover by the UN and ICANN? Obviously they want their new world internet. Well, they've already got that, but it's been invaded by good people that they completely control and regulate with corruption, including eliminating free speech. Well, I disagree with that, because we're on the internet, but also even on the cabal Facebook, and largely it goes unhindered. Yes, there are isolated things where they interfere, but we're largely being able to say what we want to say. And as I understand it, that changeover didn't take place. I'm awaiting further details on that. That you have to go on what's of with so much going on, and this is the way they like it, utter chaos. Some things have to be prioritised over others, like fake alien invasions and certain reptilians thinking they're going to attack us, or they're trying to introduce the TRN, which basically would collapse 85% of the world economy, because the Federal Reserve note is hooked into 85% of the economy. So these things are kind of more important. Yes, the internet's important to us all. So we all keep in contact as such, but I don't always have time to check on everything. But as I understand it, it wasn't passed over. Any more news you can share about the efforts to stop the further degradation of our planet, pipelines, weather wars? Well, I think I pretty much covered that in the first hour with the intel. Efforts are ongoing on many things. It's difficult to keep in touch with all of them. Like I said, more so for me now with Chloe not being here, but we do okay. Next question. A guy called McPherson, I was on OYM radio, our good friends from Ireland, said some very disheartening things about climate change, and there's nothing we can do to stop it, and that we were all doomed. I disagree with that. I think the climate change is about collecting more money off the people. I'm not saying there aren't incidents of certain things that are not going well, but it's all about the balance. You know, you see the cabal news saying, "Oh, look at the Arctic, the ice is melted." Well, it tends to do that in the summer. You know, it comes back in the winter. Sometimes it comes back more. Sometimes it's a bit less. You know. And there's actually a study done by scientists that states there's actually more ice now than there has been for the last 10,000 years. Oops. It may not all be in the one place, but if the planet has moved, as we have stated on this show a number of times now, then the Arctic ice won't be in the same place. So where they originally are saying, "Oh, look at this ice landmass is now dwindling," what they're not telling you is that it's moved nearer Russia or Siberia, and there's more ice there than there ever was. Same applies in the south. So I don't think we're doomed. I think there's certain things ongoing, unbeknown to most, of certain cleanups going on. That's why you may see things fall from the sky. And there's also an aquatic race who are cleaning up our oceans, and they've been doing so for the last 2 years. So we have a lot of help. What will be important forward is we all recognise that. You know, if you're talking about this Paris Agreement, and to be quite honest, I haven't read into it much. But it's all about climate change. You know, if they were really interested in climate change, then we would ban oil and introduce the various clean energies. So these are the people that are pushing for climate change, but they also control the professions that damage the planet. It's one thing laughing at the other. And there's that duality again. Still the same thing, isn't it? Let's have a completely different view. And let's go with clean energy. That cuts the carbon down straight away. But then there's a rumour based on the tall forests video that was done a couple of months ago, that those trees were a lot bigger because there was more carbon dioxide in the air, and they're telling us we have to reduce it. So it's a case of who do you believe? How many of these scientists are only allowed to put out what they're told to put out, otherwise they don't get the grant. You have to balance it by looking at what other people are saying rather than one individual. You know, but in the search engine, climate change is a hoax, and then see where you go with that, rather than listening to one individual who thinks everything's doom and gloom. He may well be correct. My opinion is it's not. So, planet gets hotter, planet gets colder, planet gets hotter, planet gets colder. Certain scientists tell you we've been getting hotter for the last 15 years. Other scientists tell you it's been cooling since 1999. Russians have been telling us since the late 50s, early 60s that we're going into it, heading towards an ice age. Unless we've got hot ice. Right. Could you comment on the war on drugs led by Mr. Duterte in the Philippines, and a similar war on drugs going on in Thailand, where I believe both kratom and marijuana are maintained on the illegal list in those countries? Kratom is a plant used to get rid of heroin addiction with relaxant effects. Prison sentences over there are ridiculously heavy. When is this going to stop, this suppression of real medicine, i.e. natural and non-abrasive medicine? Well, it's war on drugs is a pile of crap, as we all know. The war is on the people who are selling them, so the other people can then take over it. War is on the people, not on the drugs. If they really wanted to stop something, they would stop it overnight. But the same people that would be required to stop that are the ones that are operating the system. So there is no war on drugs. It was all about incarcerating people, particularly the black and the hippie movement, because they were taught in peace and love. That's not what they want to hear. They're incapable of either. But if suddenly those movements started spreading to the general populace, then they have a problem. So they used and signed an executive order, Mr. Nixon, to deliberately play war on drugs to get rid of the blacks. Of course, we had all the civil rights movement, on preaching harmony versus by Martin Luther King. And they don't want to hear that because they want blacks and whites fighting. Division, divide and conquer. So I would say, whilst Mr. Duterte is making some rather interesting comments, given it's going on in those two particular countries, I would suggest it's a mask for other things that are ongoing, and it's not to do with drugs, more to do with gold. Now, to go on about my personal opinion is I'm not a lover of drugs. Other people are. That's their choice. I would legalise all of it. Again, that comes down to personal choice and personal responsibility. If it was legalised, it would then take the gangster element out of it, and maybe it would also take the rebel element out of it, where some people do it because it's illegal. If it's not illegal, actually the numbers who take it drop. So that's another aspect to it. And then of course you can kind of monitor the people who are using it and offer them help should they require it. At the moment there's people sharing needles and there's all kinds of backdoor deals and people getting killed by the hour, probably by the minute, over control of patches. This is our patch, so we sell drugs here. That's something we could do without, but it's up to the individual whether they take drugs or not. To me, it's not for me, and particularly now, because every joint you buy, unless it's something you've grown yourself, is going into the hands of the very people who are doing us harm via the black projects. That's how they fund it. So you probably don't like that answer, but that's my opinion. Other people, can have their own free will, and they want to do it. That's up to them. Where are we next? Faction status and Vatican status. Vatican's gone rather quiet. Again, I haven't had a chance to get any updates on that. I gave the faction updates before. Where are we? Is Hurricane Matthew man-made? If people go on one of the weather sites and chart the path, they couldn't have placed it any better. Basically this storm appeared out of nowhere. It then managed to go roughly 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock, and then it went from 7 o'clock till 2 o'clock, maybe you can imagine on a clock system, to go in between Haiti and in between Cuba, so it didn't weaken. It then went from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock in between the two rows of islands off the coast of Florida, and then when it gets past those two rows of islands, it then goes from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock into Florida. It's some path to avoid all the lands that would have weakened it, all the mountains in Cuba. And here we are today. It looks kind of planned to me. Is it possible to label the EU as part of the Jesuit faction? or is my interpretation far too simple? There's many different. I wouldn't say a certain region. It's like the US. The US had three of the factions that were predominant here. We've now got two. The Jesuit factions kind of dropped off. So the EU is largely dominated by the Zionist faction, and also the secret society factions as well, P2s and all them people. So the Jesuits are involved in certain aspects. You know, it was global, but I wouldn't say the EU was Jesuit in total. Cobra says Hillary is still alive but not well, and there's a certain probability that she will be elected. You have stated before that she's dead. Any clarification? We had multiple confirms that Hillary died on September the 4th, and we'll stick with that. We also reported long before anybody else that she was dying, as far back as May, was it? So it's a case of wait and see. But certainly some of the ones representing Hillary in recent videos doesn't look like her, does it? Either way, whether she's alive or dead, it's not her that's on that podium. I think most people can see that now. Do you think that they seeded the clouds using chemtrail to steer the storm? Yes, I do. Where are we? Can you give a brief explanation of what the bases project is about? I presume this is the Miles Johnson stuff. Basically, it's to get the more, from what I get, I tend to stay away from it because it's some of it is projection based on mind trauma. Not necessarily that they're lying, it's just that they're projecting stuff that may not be real due to the mind trauma that those people have suffered. Largely it was a number of super soldier types, and a lot of their information is interesting. Not all of it is correct. Some of them might think it's correct, so they're not there to dupe the people. Although I watched a recent interview, a young lad by the name of Alex, and it was the biggest pile of crap I've ever seen in my life. I thought that after the first one, never mind 9, so I didn't watch the rest. And this is what you're going to get: people wanting their few minutes of fame and then duping people into believing a pile of crap. You know, it's but it can help. The Basis Project can help the super soldiers come forward and provide a platform of community and safety for them all, which has been the case, but it also leads to individuals being triggered to attack the others. And a lot of the super soldiers recently, those known as super soldiers, I know they don't like that term, have been triggered into acting not in their best interests at the moment. I'm hoping some of them have also been triggered into releasing a lot of the programs and fighting underground. So hope that answers the question. Tensions between the Western bullies and Russia are rising. The plan, I suspect, is to create fear among the people. Yep. Will they use nukes? No. Or will outside forces prevent them? Outside and on. the planet will prevent them going any further with that nonsense. They just won't be allowed to do that. What do you make of the Pope's article coming out and saying this is our last Christmas, it's the end times? I didn't see the article, but I've kind of heard this before. To be honest, the Pope said it's something rather extraordinary that just got completely ignored by practically everyone when he announced in November, I think it was, or October of 2013, that Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Day. So why are we still having Christmas? Is it just a marketing ploy to take more money off the people again? Because if it's not Jesus' birthday, what are we actually celebrating? So maybe this is the last Christmas as we know. I don't know. I wouldn't take it as being catastrophic, but then we really need to look at what Christmas is all about. Is it about going into further debt to help the cabal? Because what are we actually celebrating? It's not Jesus' birthday. So they're obviously wanting to continue it, and the real meaning is it's some sort of negative pagan festival. Do we really want to continue with that? So if this is the last Christmas as we know it, so be it. Let's have a new day, People's Day, where the people are reborn, all of us. How do I keep up with everything to answer such obscure questions? To be quite honest, I've no idea. I literally have no idea. I somehow managed to retain a lot of information. It comes at you from all angles. Well, thankfully I've got a good brain processor and also a good memory, and so I hope that answers your question. My opinion on David Wilcock and Corey Good, are they onto something or what? Yes, they're onto something. A money making scheme in my opinion. I think we'll pass on that. Was the fantasy of the first debate a setup so that Trump group knew not to see the clean-up that happened? I don't really understand that question. The first debate was a complete and utter joke. Trump stood there and allowed Hillary to, or the double operating as Hillary, to lay to bear all Trump's failings, and Trump didn't answer back. So the debate was a set-up to show Trump to be weak and Hillary to be strong, so then the people vote. Like I said, even if it was real, it always goes, people always go on first impressions. So no matter what Trump does, if there's further debates, I don't know whether there is or there isn't, I don't follow it. It doesn't matter what he does in if there's any further debates, because first impressions showed that he was weak, which is exactly what he intends to do. Julian Assange, lack of announcement, he was threatened. So, is it true that the North and South Pole areas are the entrance and exit for the visitors? Yes. And are there other spots in our solar system that are used for this? Yes, many. a lot of the negative ones were shut off. Of course, there was famous or infamous portal that was opened in the Congo in '96, and quite a hefty number of reptilians poured through it, and there was a lot of bedlam in the Congo at that time. And then you had the movement of so-called we're going to feed the people, so we'll need a lot of military. No, they were fighting. Same applies in Yemen, Stargate off the coast there. There's a number of Stargates where battles have taken place. Kashmir may be another one. This Indian-Pakistan thing may not be about the drugs, as I mentioned earlier. It may also be about a certain reptilian group that used to inhabit that region. In fact, that used to be one of their biggest bases. If those of you read the words of the song Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, it kind of tells you what it's about. Space traveller. Thomas, I would love to hear your comments on Neil Keenan's latest rant. My comment is none. And in particular, his opinion of Pete Santilli to compare to Vinnie Eastwood's, my comment to that would also be none. It's just best that way. What can I share about the Paris Agreement? Well, from what I've heard, it's dealing with world finance and a way to transition without upsetting the masses. No, it's more faction shenanigans, and certain aspects of it still haven't been signed despite what's been mentioned on the internet, because it just didn't it wasn't beneficial to the people, and a certain Mr. Obama blocked some of it, whether people like him or not. He did block it on certain aspects of it. So it's almost like a factions get together where they can come up with certain things and think they can implement certain things. But what you're finding is a lot of the things they're trying to implement are being blocked by many people and many different governments as well, including some of the governments we would frown upon. So I'll need to get a lot more information to expand more on the Paris Agreement, and hopefully things will quieten down in the next week where I'll be allowed to do that, but we'll see. Probably too late now. Meditation for the hurricane, yes it is, but hopefully it won't be as bad as we think. Well, we'll see. Right, I'm probably going to end it there now. I've gone past the music break, so I'm going to do a bit more clearing of plants before they go flying around the pool area, and a few more battening down the hatches, and see how long it goes. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'm going to leave you with where are we? A bit of sarcasm in the song, given the name of it. But first, I'm going to read my piece. I know you're all, many of our listeners love hearing that, and it's important for us all. Each week we hear different news, some of it good, some of it not so good. It's important that we all try to keep a semblance of balance as the struggles of life ramp up. I know they've ramped up in my life, and sometimes it becomes difficult, but we have to keep strong within ourselves and believe in ourselves. So if you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others may want them to be. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved. You are not here to be abused. And most importantly, you are not here to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be and do so as a crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are and excel in yourself, and in doing so inspire others. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name is Thomas Williams. Stay safe, stay prepared, stay strong at this time, and never let anyone put you in any fear. I hope you enjoyed the last song. I'm hoping the winds don't change. Well, not tonight anyway. Bye for now.